Okay, so good morning, class. So we are going to have a face-to-face classes today, but due to what we call this one, the holiday, so we are going just to do it via this uh, video class. I do not have a time for the virtual class, so I have to do this. Now, since we have already the discussion, you even had a sample activity on the board last time. Now we're going to do it through the application. Now the application of this one is we are going to follow through by means of this the derivatives and its application. We have already the four kinds of derivatives, four rules of derivatives that we have, which is the sums and differences. We have the product rule, and we have the quotient rule, and of course we have the chain rule. Sorry for my handwriting here. I cannot write properly using the computer itself. Now in this one is, let's see how are we going to use this one in the business concept, because we know that in the business concept we do not use x and y unless they are being represented, such as those that we have learned when it comes to our mathematics, that let x would be the profit, let y would be the output, and so on. Now in here we are going to, before we go further for the applications, is we have just a little recap on our discussion last time. So I had here an example. Already. Remember that when it comes to doing a certain kind of a derivative, is we always have to follow what we call this one, the simple formula. And remember, when it comes to derivative, meaning we are finding, okay, we are finding the value of a certain variable. We are finding the value. Sorry for that. We are finding the value of a certain variable. Okay, so in this one, let's start first a simple recap. So look at the example number one. Having this one, y 3x cubed plus 2x squared minus x plus 3. Now the question is, find the value of x by deriving the function y in terms of x. Meaning, we are finding the value ng x natin. What is, or how much is the value of x? So by doing that is we have to derive it. Now we have to derive it. Let's do it by 1:1. Okay, so by writing the simple base formula, and we have to derive 3x cubed here, d3x, this one, d3x cubed all over dx, ibig sabihin 3x cubed divided by x, plus 2x squared all over dx, which is simply also 2x squared divided by x, minus the derivative of x all over dx, or simply x divided by x, plus the derivative of 3 in terms of x. Now, in terms of this one, how did we arrive at the 9x squared? The derivative of this one is, look at the 3 here, okay? The 3 exponent, multiply it by the absolute number 3 here. So 3 times 3 is this one, 9. We know that x cubed divided by x, by the rules of exponent itself, we have to divide x cubed. Okay? X cubed divided by x there. So that means x is to x is parang we are eliminating the denominator itself. So that means this one will be eliminated, and the numerator will remain, but since it has a higher exponent and this one has a lower one, we have to minus it, and that became x squared. Okay, now let's follow to the second one, the 2x squared all over the dx. Okay, so in here again the exponent 2, so this the exponent 2. Okay, exponent 2 divided this one. Let's see to be the, let's put it this way. So this 2 here, multiply it to the 2 there. Absolute number 2. Bring it down, which is the 4 here. Okay, this one the 4. Next is we have to divide x squared divided by x. That means we are again eliminating the denominator. So since the numerator has a higher exponent, so the denominator will be eliminated. It will become 0 as it is, or 1. So x is all over x. This one will be eliminated. Numerator will remain. And remember the exponent is 2 with the exponent of the denominator, which is 1. So 2 minus 1, it will become x. Since the numerator will remain, so we have to remain it as is. So that is the x here. So the answer for the second derivative is derivative of 2x squared all over dx is 4x. Now, following the derivative of x in terms of x. So simply x to the first power, x to the first power, which is also in the denominator. Our rule again here is to eliminate this, the denominator. So remember, x is to x, okay, is 1 itself. So we have here the 1. So we have the final answer as the 9x squared plus 4x minus 1. Okay, so that's how we do the derivatives. Now this one, what kind of derivative rule is this? So this is what we call for the S and D, or the sums and differences. Okay, so this one is the sums and differences. Next rule is we have the product rule. Remember, in the product rule is that we are following the formula. Okay, first is we have to derive this one, multiply it with the underived other function, plus this one, deriving the second one, multiplying the underived function in here. So let's see. Ba? So writing the base formula, the derivative of the first function, which is the 4x plus 2x all over dx, times the 3x plus 2x, which is the value that we have to not derive, plus again the underived value, which is the 4x plus 2x, times the derivative of the second function, which is this one. Okay, so doing that, let's do it again one by one. So first here is we have what we call the 4x plus 2. 4x plus 2. Now we're going to derive that. So let's first derive this one. So d 4x all over dx. Remember the rule, eliminate the denominator. Okay, eliminate the denominator. Sorry, this one is squared. Okay, so and this one is plus 2x. There, so we're delimiting the denominator. So in here again, remember, before you're going to delimitate the x, which is x on the numerator, get the exponent first of that value and multiply it to the absolute value man, kung ano man yung absolute value that is available on the left side of the number. So 2 times the 4 there is what we call the 8. Okay, so we have here the 8. And then we have to delimit the x squared divided by x. So again, extract it, and it will become x here. So supposedly this 4 here, it's not a 4x, but it became an 8x supposedly. This one must be an 8x. Okay, so if that is an 8x here. Okay, now on the other side, the derivative of 2x all over dx. So in this case, delimit again, or remove the denominator and multiply. I divide it to the numerator. So numerator divided by the denominator. We know that in here we have the same value ang kanilang exponent, that is 1. So since the exponent here is 1, so that means you have to remove it We have to remove it and make it 1. So what remains is only the 2. So we have only 2. So 8x plus 2. And that is what we have here. We multiply it to the other function which is underived, which is this one. Okay? Walang nangyari sa kanya because we never derive it. That is based on the formula. Next is the second step, that is deriving the other function. So remaining this first function times, of course, the derivative of the second function. So we have the second function, which is 3 plus 2x. Okay? Now in here is where if we are going to derive it, remember that the absolute value will never be derived, so it is equivalent to 0. Now d2x dx, d2x again, divided by dx here, will give you what? 2. Why? Because here, 1 is the exponent of the both numerator and denominator. The 1 here will be multiplied to the absolute number on the left side of the value. And we have to divide the x variable to the x in the denominator. And we have here that x to the first power and x to the first power is cancelled out. It will become 1 as it is. So 2 will remain. So the answer here is only 2. And that is the reason why it is 2 here. Okay? And then following, you have to multiply 8x times 3, which is supposedly this one is 24. 8x, this one, 24 supposedly yan. And then 8x times the 2x here, that is supposedly 16x squared. This one is 16x squared. And then next one is the 2 times the 3, that is the 6 here. And then the 2 times the 4, which is the 4x here. Okay, so following to this one. And you will have the final answer. Okay, if you're going to follow the change the 12x into 24x, and therefore we have uh, different values at the one. That's how you're going to simplify it. Okay, that's in the product rule. Remember, delimit or eliminate the denominator through the numerator. But the absolute value, yung mga numbers na to, 4 here, 3 here, is they have to remain constant, and you are just multiplying them to the exponent if they have an exponent. But if the value does not have an exponent and you are deriving it like this 3 plus 2x here, then remember, absolutely it will automatically equivalent to 0. Okay, so that's how you deal with it. So take note, dealing with the derivative is always eliminating or simplifying, I suppose to say, simplifying the function up to its minimal point so that we can find the value of x. Because if we are going to continue this kind of solution is uh, of course, you're going to find the value of x by having this final formula. Since it is on the second power, you're going to use the quadratic formula to solve for the value of x. Okay, so if I am going to go further and said find the value of x, and then you have to use the quadratic function. Okay, now let's proceed to the quotient rule. The quotient rule naman is, first is you have to derive the numerator multiplied by the underived denominator minus the derivative of the denominator times the underived numerator. So that's how you do it on the quotient rule. So let's see how we did it. Okay, so in here we have here the derived the numerator. So look at this one, it was derived here, the derivative of 4x squared minus x divided by the dx times the underived value of this one, underived value of the denominator. Okay, less minus, we have here a minus there, this one, it was not revealed. Minus, of course, you have to derive the denominator, that's why it is here, the derivative of 2x, 2 plus x all over dx, times the underived numerator, which is the 4x squared, which is here. Okay, overall, you have to divide it by the denominator to the second power. That's why, look at the denominator. Okay, look at the denominator. It was steady there, but it is raised to the second power. Okay, so that's how you do the quotient rule. So remember doing that. So first is we have to derive the numerator. Derive the numerator, multiply by the underived denominator, minus the derived numerator, multiply by the underived, derived denominator pala. We have to check, we have to make some corrections because the first is derived numerator. So this one is minus the derived denominator times the underived numerator. Okay, so that is the process, okay, of doing that. If you're going to see this one is parang D, high, low, D, low, high. Ba? High meaning the numerator, low meaning the denominator. If there is a D, that means the D, the high here must be derived. The low, which does not have a D here, that means it will not be derived. D low high, that means derive the low, which is the denominator, multiplied by the high, which is the numerator, which will not be derived. Okay, so let's see how do we do it. So remember that is 4x squared minus x times the 2x plus x minus the derivative of the 2x plus x times the numerator, which is this 4x minus x. So this how they do it. Okay, so the 4x, x squared yun, 4x squared minus x. So if you're going to derive it, there, derivative of the 4x squared, derivative of 4x squared. Okay, so this one again, the exponent, multiply it to the absolute number. Always multiply the exponent to the absolute number if that function has an absolute number. But if that function does not have an absolute value, then you never mind, or you do not have any value to multiply with the exponent. So just put the exponent near the variable. So in here, we have since 2 times 4, that's we have here the 8. And how did it become an x here? Remember that it is all over x. So this one, after multiplying the exponent to the absolute value, so x squared divided by x, we always have to delimit the denominator. I-remain natin yung has a higher exponent. So, but we have to minus it to what we had removed. So 2 minus 1 here, it become 1. So that's why it is x here. Okay. And of course, we have the x. Okay, minus the x. How are we going to derive the x? dx. So x divided by x. Ba? Function. The formula. Okay, so dx. Dx all over dx. So cancel out, cancel out. But we know that this x value is, it does not mean that if we cancel out both, we do not have any value here. Remember, in mathematics, an x divided by x is always equivalent to 1. Unless if the variable or the exponent of the x here will become 0, then that means we do not have any value here. So wala tayong 1 dito. Okay? But since x in divided by x is equivalent to automatically 1, then therefore we have to put the 1 here. Okay, and then we just have to write the denominator, which is 2x plus x, because it means that we are not going to derive it. Next is we have to derive the denominator, which is the 2x plus x. We are going to derive the denominator, which is 2 plus x. Okay, so if we're going to derive that, remember that the absolute value is automatically cannot be derived because it does not have any variable on it, so it is equivalent to 0. The dx here, which is also the same here, will now be equivalent to 1 itself, and that is the 1 here. And then just copy the numerator, which is the 4x squared minus x, divided by the 2x squared. But in here, I did not squared it, but actually multiply it to the same factor, because 2 plus x here to the second power is also the same with this one. The reason why I did not do this is because I've seen that the numerator here is almost the same here. So therefore, I can actually extract it by means of canceling them out. So we will have only the remaining 1, 2 plus x function at the denominator. And that is the reason why the 8x minus 1 here remain the same as this one. And only this one is I had to multiply the negative 1 here to the function in here, and we have this value. Where did where did the 2 plus x there? I had to cancel out because it is also the same with what is it? 1 in the denominator. Now, denominator, if I'm going to factor it out. Okay? If you're going to factor it out, it will have the same as that one, which is also the same when it comes to the numerator. So we have to cancel it out. So by simplifying it, we have already simplifying and regrouping that is either descending or ascending. But here is we have the descending. So we have the 4x squared, which is the number, the first one, and then second is we have the 9x, 8x, 8x, positive 8x plus x here, that is 9, and then we have here the negative 1. So we have this final answer here. Okay, now if I'm going to say find the value of x, okay, then that means you have to use what function in here? It is still the quadratic formula because we are on the second power. Okay, so you could just equate that to 0. Okay, and cross multiply, and you will use the quadratic formula. Okay, now the last part already of what we call your derivative is this one. We have here your chain rule. The chain rule here is finding the value of one factor that is in the other factor. That's why, for example, we have here a function 3u squared. So that means 3u, if we are just looking for the derivative of u here, it is just simply deriving the u. Okay? If the question is we have a certain kind of, if we have here a function which is the 3u, the 3u, 3u squared, and the question said, what is the value of u? And it is just simply getting the exponent to multiplying it to the absolute value, and we have 6u. And that's it. That's the final answer. If it is just dy du. If that is just the function, then that's the answer. But if the question is dy dx, and yet our given function is y is equivalent to 3m, that means the m here symbolizes another function. Therefore, wherein yung m na yun, doon makikita yung value ng x. Okay, so let's see how we do it in here. Please bear with the handwriting. I cannot properly write using the mouse. There, so we have again here y 3u squared, wherein your goal here is your task is dy dx. That means if this is the task and yet this is the function, that means the u there, doon natin makikita yung value on x. Wherein the u is this one, 6x squared minus x. Okay, so first is let's derive according to the formula. Derive first this one. So the 2 exponent there multiplied to the 3, so that 6u. And why it is u? Because remember, u divided by u, and we have the 2 here as the 1. exponent. So let's explain it here. So that hindi malito. 3u squared. Okay, divided by u. So the 2 here, multiply it to the 3, so we have 6. And then the u to the second power, sa denominator niya is we have, on the denominator, we have u only. So remember, higher denominator, so we have to remain the higher numerator, so we have to remain the numerator u. But we have to deduct 1 from it because we delimit the denominator. So we have 6u in here. Next is we have to derive the function u. This is the function u. What is the derivative of 6x squared? The 2 exponent here, multiply it to the absolute value 6. Always multiply it again. 2 times 6 is we have the 12. X squared divided by x is again delimit the denominator. Maiiwan yung higher exponent, but you have to minus the exponent because you delimit one value. So if we have x here. Okay, here the derivative of negative x is just d dx. Okay, simple as dx all over dx. Again, in here you would say you have to cancel it out. That means it will become 0. No, this is not possible because x divided by x is equivalent to 1. So therefore, 1 here is this one. Okay, and the next is we have to derive the one here. By rules of the derivative, an absolute value cannot be derived because it is already the value itself. So it is equivalent to 0, therefore no need to write it there. So we have here the result of it. Okay, so we have here the result of what we derive. 6u times 12x minus 1. So you cannot multiply this one. You could actually, this will become just 6ux. So why not just replace the u here with the value? So what is the value of the x? What is the value of the u, I suppose? This one is the value. So you put this one, you substitute the value of the u to the u here. Okay, so that is this one. 6, which we have here. Here, 6, just bring down the 6 there. Now the u is substitute this formula here. So we have here the 6x squared minus x plus 1 times, of course, what we derive on the inner part, which is the 12x minus 1. Okay, so once we're done with that, is just do the m does. You have to multiply it. Okay, so remember, this one is connected to that one. So 6 times the 6x squared, we have 36x minus 6x plus x. And then again, the result of this one, multiply it again here. Remember, you cannot just multiply this parenthesis to that parenthesis because we know that 6u, sila yung magkasama. So sila dapat yung unahing i-multiply bago i-multiply sa result na ito. Okay, so therefore we have the result of 3x squared minus 6x plus x times 12x minus 1. And then by multiplying this one is we have 36 times 12 is we have 432x cubed. 36 times 1 is we have here the negative 36x squared. Negative 6x times the 12x is we have the negative 72x squared. Negative x times 1 is we have the positive because both of them are negative to negative, it will become positive. And then next, the last one, the absolute value multiplied into 12x is we have the 72x positive here. And then the 6 times 1 there is we have here. And by regrouping it and simplifying, we have already the final, well, regrouping it, finalizing it, simplifying it, then we will have the final output, which is 432x cubed minus 108x squared plus 78x minus x. So if this would be your function, how am I going to find the value of x and yet we have the cubic? Then you have to use the cubic form. Okay, remember that we have the cubic form when it comes to finding, wherein we have, we could use actually the quadratic cubic form by means of the polynomial function. If you know the formula of the polynomial function that we had before, then you could use it here so that we could find the value of x. Okay, so those are actually the 4 rules that we had last time. So take note, we are going to proceed already to the application of it. Now, let's now proceed to the simple application. This is the simple application because if you're going to be introduced already to the different market structures, you're going to encounter different kinds of functions already. We have only here a profit function, but if you're going to go further, especially in our midterms, you're going to find marginal revenue function, the marginal cost function, etc. function. But here is just, let's just do the simple way of the profit function. Now, profit function is derived through this one. Profit is equivalent to revenue less the cost. Okay? Wherein the revenue could be derived by this one. Revenue price times the quantity. The price here could either be what we call the demand function or the supply function. Okay? The demand function, remember the examples that we had in deriving the QD function. Okay, the QD function, the YMX plus B. So, ganyan din po yan. The P here could either be the function of the demand. Same is true with the supply, which is the QS. Okay, with its function there. Okay, so that's the P here. And the Q will always be just that one. Unless, if the given example is just a Q, then the Q1 will be used there. Now we have here the cost function. How are we going to derive the cost function? We have here fixed cost is the FC, variable cost is the VC, or if there is no such thing as fixed cost or variable, and yet it was being mentioned in that we have the average total cost. Average total cost is just this one times the quantity, and you will also have your cost. How is it being derived, the average total cost? Okay, now average total cost is simply total cost divided by your quantity. Okay, yan, average total cost is total cost divided by the quantity. Ibig sabihin, ilan out of the total na ginastos natin sa isang product, ilan ang ginastos natin sa isang product. Ito yung ATC. Okay? Ganun po siya. So, let's have a simple example. Okay, we have a simple example of how to derive or how to use the derivative using the actual functions of a certain businesses. So for example, we have a price which is equivalent to 6 minus 2q. We have the fixed cost which is 20 and the variable cost which is the 4q. So how are we going? The question is find the profit and the value of q. What is the value of q? Okay, so first, before we arrive to the profit, remember that from the formula, we have here revenue minus the cost. And yet from the given, we do not have a revenue. We only have a price, the fixed cost, and the variable cost. So first and foremost, before we arrive to the profit itself, we have to derive what is the R and we have to derive what is the C. Okay, so first is let's derive the revenue. Revenue function is just price times the quantity. We have here the price, which is 6 minus 2q. Substitute it. 6 minus 2q times the q. Because according here, R or revenue is price times q. We have the price, but we do not have the q, so just put the q there. And as a result, we have here the 6q minus the 2q squared. Okay, so after a while, let's derive already your cost function. Accordingly, fixed cost plus variable cost. We have just the given fixed cost and we also have the given variable cost. So just substitute it to the formula and we have our total cost function. We have our total revenue. We have our total cost. From the profit function, just substitute it there. So profit function, that is revenue minus the cost. So what is the revenue? This one is the revenue. What is the cost? Minus. Close open parenthesis ninyo para hindi nyo makalimutan kasi if you're just going to direct the 20 plus Q there without the parenthesis, then you will have the wrong answer because remember, minus here. Separated siya. Here, minus. Separated yung Q. Ay, yung cost. So we have to do that so that you can multiply the function here to the function there. Okay? Ganyan po siya. Do not forget to put a parenthesis on it para hindi kayo malito. So, by means of that, by simplifying 6q minus 2q squared, simply as that, we then distribute the mathematical function here, which is 2q, 20 pala na 2q, positive to negative, that will give you negative 4q. And by simplifying it, we have here the final result of the profit. Okay, this one is already satisfied. We have our profit function already. Next is to find the value of q. Remember, in the finding the value of q with this one is you could actually do that, but since we are on the derivative, is we have to use the derivative one. The derivative one is better compared to just using any formula. Okay, so by having the profit, let's now derive the profit function so that we could derive at the q. So by having the profit function here, you derive it one by one. Let's do it again one by one here kasi wala na tayong x or y. So here, derive the 2q, ito yon, plus the derivative of 2q, which is this one, plus the derivative of 20, minus the derivative of 20, so we have this one. Okay? So what is the derivative of this? This first function, ito yon, the negative 4q. How come? Take note that we have here 2q squared divided by q here. Oh, medyo i-disregard natin yung d, pero meron yan, di ba? So in this one, sabi ko nga, we have again an absolute value here. Regardless if it is a negative or positive, we always have to multiply it to the exponent na meron yung variable. So we have here negative 4. Okay? And then delimit the denominator. Remove the denominator using what is the variable on the numerator. So this one is the numerator, which is the q squared divided by the q. So maaalis itong denominator. The numerator that has a higher exponent will remain, but we have to remove 1, minus 1 from the exponent. So we have here 4q. Okay? Next is let's derive the 2q. So 2q here divided by q. Okay? So remember, absolute value nito is 1. Absolute value nito is 2. Exponent nito is 1. Automatic na exponent niya is 1. So 1 times the 2 here, so it will just be remaining as 2 as it is. Q to the first power and q to the first power sa numerator and denominator, that will be cancelled out and that will become 1. Multiplying it to the 2, so it will remain as is na ganyan. So we have here the 2. Okay? Remember, the task is we are looking for the value of q. Hinahanap natin yung value ng q na ito. So that means, how are we going to do that? After na natapos natin na-derive or nakuha yung first derivative, always equate it to 0. Ito, equals 0 again doon. Para naman sa ganun, matranspose natin siya. Okay, matranspose natin. So, kaya tignan natin dito. Na-transpose na yon. So, in here, we have 4q, negative 4q, which is this one. And then, to the other side, i-transfer natin itong 2 positive. Ilagay natin yung sa kabila maging negative, kaya negative yon. Okay? Siyempre, we are looking for the value of q, so we have to eliminate the 4 there. Eliminate the 4. So, we have the value of q, which is 1/2. That is simply how you're going to do the profit maximization. Bakit profit maximization? How did the Q here become the profit maximization? Ibig sabihin, yung Q na ito yung output na dapat i-produce para ma-attain natin yung pinakamataas na profit. Kasi pag bababa ka dyan or tataas ka, hindi na profit maximization yun. This is the only output that must be produced to attain the profit maximization. Kaya, profit maximization ang awag doon. Ganon. Okay? So, that is how simple the application of the basic application of your derivatives. Okay? So, I have here one example. Okay, we have here the example. We have Q, 4 plus 4P, and the func C, which is this one, x cubed plus 2x squared minus 3. Remember, from the first example, we have P here, but now we have Q. So how is that possible? That is still possible. So this one is considered to be, sabi ko nga, demand function or supply function. Pero paano natin malalaman kung supply function yan or demand function? From the sign. Pag ito, sign na ito is naging negative, that means the slope is negative, that is a demand. If it is a positive, then that is a supply. Okay? So, dealing with that, our task is again the same. The task is the same. Find the profit function and find the quantity. Remember, you cannot find the quantity by just here, by using this one. But before that, let's change the x here, make it as q, so that we will have the same value, q. So rather than x cubed is we have here q cubed plus 2q squared minus 3. Okay, so that's it. So first, again, make your total revenue or total cost function. Since we have our cost function, we will not anymore derive our cost function given na siya. So we have to find for your total revenue. Total revenue is just simply price times the quantity. We have already the quantity there. So we just simply substitute it again. Price times 4 plus 4p. Okay, there. Okay, so therefore, it is just simply 4p plus 4p squared. We have our total revenue. But the problem is, nung nakita mo yung cost function, naka-Q siya. And then, ito yung variable dito is P. So, paano natin gagawin yan? Diba? We have to change it to quantity. So, rather than doing this, pwede naman natin siyang, what do you call this one? Inverse function siya. Okay? So, since price times quantity, nakita mo na yung cost mo is nasa quantity siya, why not change the function, yung unang function pa lang, to become a P function? So, yung Q na yon is equivalent to 4 plus 4P. Make it a P function. So, that means Q, transposing 4 sa kabila, magiging 4 dito negative, maiiwan si 4P sa kabila. Okay? So, divided by 4 kasi making it a P function. So, ito yung Q na to. The Q here has 1. So, 1 divided by 4, it will become 0.25. Right? 0.25. So, in that case, we have -0.25. Negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. Ay, sorry, may Q pala to. 0.25Q minus 1 is equivalent to P function. So that is the P. So once we have this one already, then ito na yung i-multiply natin sa total revenue. So we have 0.25Q minus 1 as our P function already. This is our price function. So that maka-jive dito sa cost function. Okay? So we have wait. Q cube plus 2 squared minus 3. 0.25q minus 1. So here we have our p function already, which is 0.25q minus 1. Okay, and the cost function is we have q cube plus 2q squared minus 3. Okay, so that is our function. Task is the profit function. Sorry for the writing ha, kasi nga po, di maganda yung gamit sa mouse. Hindi ko magamit yung phone ko eh. So we have here the profit function. I will make it as perfect as it is. Revenue minus the cost. Revenue is price times the quantity. So price is we have 0.25q minus 1 times the q minus the cost, which is q cube plus 2q squared minus 3. Okay. Yan. So multiply it. 0.25 times the q curves, 0.25. So that will give you 0.25 q squared minus q minus q cube minus 2q squared minus 3. Sorry. Negative times negative, that will give you positive 3. And then simplify to get your profit function. This, alam natin that we will do the descending one. So negative q here, cube. Okay. We have here the squared and the squared. So 25 minus 2, that will give you plus 23q squared. Okay, we have here the q, mag-isa lang niya. So just copy as it is, minus q. Ito, plus 3. So we have our profit function already. Sabi, we are looking for the value of q. So we have to derive. Remember, derive. The profit, ano yung hinahanap natin? Siya yung nasa denominator, which is the q. Okay? And then, derive natin to. Ito, 3. Wala siyang absolute dito. So, just bring it down. Magiging negative 3 siya. Right? And then, q cube divided by q. So, maalis yung nasa denominator. So, ang mangyayari dyan is q squared. Then here, okay, so 23q squared. So, we have here the exponent, which is 2. The exponent na 2, multiply natin yung sa absolute number na 23. So, we have here plus 46q. Next is itong value, negative q. I-derive natin to negative q, that is q divided by q. Automatically, it is 1. And the 3 here is an absolute value, so it is 0. Never mind writing it. So this is the first derivative. The value of the first derivative. So again, doing or using the quadratic formula, which is x is equivalent to negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Okay, para malaman natin yung x. So that means you will have a two possible x value. But take note, only the positive value will be used when it comes to doing this one. Okay? So that's how you do the application of your profit. So hope it would be simple, and now you could actually do your activity 3. So that's it. Now, if you have a question regarding this lesson, then please ask them in your GC so that we could actually have a better understanding of it. So thank you, and hope that this simple discussion of ours would just add to your knowledge about the derivative, and you will have a lesser problem or issues when it comes to dealing other problems.